Ever bought a pineapple from the store and thought, wouldn't it be amazing to grow these tropical beauties right in my own backyard? Well, I'm here to tell you that not only is it possible, but it's actually one of the easiest fruit plants you can grow in containers. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the complete process of growing pineapples in containers. From that store-bought fruit all the way to harvesting your own homegrown pineapples. And stick around to the end where I'll share my secret for getting multiple harvests from a single plant. Something that took me years to figure out, but will save you so much time. Let's dive right in. Growing pineapples at home is one of those things that sounds exotic and difficult, but once you understand the process, you'll realize it's surprisingly straightforward. The best part is, you don't need a tropical climate or a huge garden. If you're in zones 9 through 11, you can grow them outdoors year-round. And if you're in colder areas, you can still grow them successfully by bringing them indoors during winter. All you need is a decent-sized container, some patience, and the right know-how, which is exactly what I'm about to share with you. Now, before we jump into the actual planting process, let me give you a quick overview of what you're getting into. A pineapple plant takes about 20 to 30 months from planting to harvest, which I know sounds like a long time. But here's the thing. It's not like you're out there working on it every day. Once you get it established, it's mostly just waiting and doing some basic maintenance. Think of it like a long-term investment that pays off with the sweetest, most delicious fruit you've ever tasted. And unlike store-bought pineapples that are picked green for shipping, yours will ripen fully on the plant, developing flavors you didn't even know pineapples could have. The pineapple plant itself is actually a bromeliad, which means it's related to those decorative plants you see at the garden center. In nature, they grow on the ground in tropical regions, collecting water in their leaf cups and slowly developing that iconic fruit we all love. What's fascinating is that each pineapple is actually made up of hundreds of individual flowers that fuse together to form one fruit. When you grow them at home, you're essentially recreating their tropical environment in a container, which is easier than it sounds. One thing that surprises most people is that pineapples don't grow on trees. They grow from the center of a leafy plant that looks almost like a large, spiky aloe vera. The fruit develops on a stalk that emerges from the center, and watching this process unfold in your own garden is truly magical. Let's start with the most important step, selecting and preparing your pineapple for planting. This is where your journey begins, and getting it right sets you up for success. Head to your local grocery store and look for a pineapple with a healthy green crown. The crown is that leafy top part, and it's exactly what we're going to use to start our new plant. Now, I've started dozens of pineapples over the years, and I can tell you that the health of that crown makes all the difference. When you're selecting your pineapple, look for one where the center leaves of the crown pull out easily with a gentle tug. If they come out without resistance, that pineapple is perfectly ripe and ready. The leaves should be firm and green, not brown or yellowing. Avoid any with damaged or missing leaves in the center. I personally prefer buying organic pineapples when I can find them, not just because they're pesticide-free, but I've found they tend to root more successfully. Maybe it's just coincidence, but after starting over 30 plants, I've noticed a pattern. Once you've got your pineapple home, it's time to prepare the crown. Using a sharp knife, cut the crown off about an inch below where the leaves start. Now here's a crucial tip that took me way too long to figure out. You need to remove all the fruit flesh from the crown. Any flesh left on there will rot in water or soil and can kill your cutting before it even gets started. I use a paring knife and carefully scrape away every bit of fruit until I can see the hard core in the center. Next, and this is important, pull off the bottom inch or so of leaves. Just grab them and pull downward. They should come off pretty easily. You'll start to see little brown nubs, or sometimes even tiny roots already forming. These are root primordia, and they're exactly what we want to see. If you look closely, you might even see them arranged in circles around the stem. Now comes the rooting phase, and you've got two options here. The water method is what I recommend for beginners because you can actually see the roots developing, which is not only exciting, but also lets you know when it's time to plant. Take a clear glass or jar. I like using a mason jar because the wide mouth holds the crown perfectly. Fill it with room temperature water and set the crown so just the bottom inch is submerged. You don't want the leaves sitting in water or they'll rot. Place this in a bright spot but not in direct sunlight. A north-facing window is perfect, or any spot that gets good indirect light. Change the water every 2 to 3 days to keep it fresh and prevent bacteria growth. Within about a week, you'll start seeing tiny white roots emerging from those brown nubs. It's absolutely fascinating to watch, and kids especially love checking on the progress every day. After about 3 to 4 weeks, when the roots are 2 to 3 inches long, your crown is ready for planting. Some people wait longer, but I found that transplanting at this stage gives the best results. The roots are established enough to support the plant, but not so long that they get damaged during planting. Now let's talk about choosing the right container and getting your pineapple planted properly. This is where a lot of people make mistakes that limit their harvest later on. Container size matters more than you might think. While you can start in a smaller pot, I'm going to save you the trouble of transplanting later. Go big from the start. I recommend at least a 5-gallon container, but honestly, a 15 to 20-gallon container or half whiskey barrel is ideal. I learned this the hard way with my first plant. I started it in a 12-inch pot thinking I'd upgrade later. Well, when later came at about 15 months, that plant had developed serious spines and sharp leaves that made transplanting a painful experience. Literally. I still have a scar on my forearm from that adventure. The bigger container not only saves you from wrestling with a spiky plant later, but it also gives the roots room to spread, which directly translates to a bigger fruit. Your container needs excellent drainage. Pineapples absolutely cannot tolerate waterlogged soil. Drill extra holes if needed. I usually add 4 to 6 additional 1/4-inch holes around the bottom edges of plastic containers. If you're using a ceramic or terracotta pot, make sure it has at least one large central drainage hole. For soil, you want something that drains well, but still holds some moisture. I make my own mix using 2 parts good quality potting soil, 1 part perlite, and 1 part compost. The perlite ensures drainage, while the compost provides nutrients and helps retain just enough moisture. Some people add a handful of sand to improve drainage further, which works well too. Avoid heavy garden soil or anything that stays soggy. When you're ready to plant, fill your container about 2-3 full with your soil mix. Make a hole in the center about 3 inches deep. Here's a pro tip. Sprinkle a tablespoon of bone meal in the hole before planting. It provides phosphorus that encourages root development. Gently place your rooted crown in the hole and backfill with soil, firming it gently. The soil should come up to just where the bottom leaves start. Water it in thoroughly until water runs out the drainage holes. This initial watering is important because it settles the soil around the roots and eliminates air pockets. For the first couple of weeks, keep the soil consistently moist but not wet while the plant establishes itself. Now we need to talk about care and maintenance during the growing phase, which is where your pineapple really starts to take off. For the first 4 to 6 months, your main job is just keeping the plant happy while it establishes its root system and starts producing new leaves. You'll notice the center leaves growing first. They'll be longer and often a lighter green than the original crown leaves. This is exactly what you want to see. Watering is pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. Pineapples are surprisingly drought tolerant once established, but they grow faster with consistent moisture. I water deeply once a week during the growing season, twice a week during hot spells. In winter, I cut back to every 10 to 14 days. The key is to let the top inch of soil dry out between waterings. Stick your finger in the soil. If it's dry at knuckle depth, it's time to water. Here's something most people don't know. Pineapples can actually absorb water and nutrients through their leaves. In nature, rain collects in the cup formed by the leaves and slowly feeds the plant. You can mimic this by occasionally pouring a small amount of water directly into the center of the plant, especially during dry spells. Just don't overdo it or let water sit there for days, as this can cause rot. Feeding your pineapple is crucial for getting a good-sized fruit. These plants are heavier feeders than most people realize. Starting about a month after planting, I feed every 2 weeks with a balanced liquid fertilizer, diluted to half strength. Any good 10-10-10 or 20-20-20 fertilizer works fine. Once the plant is about 6 months old, I switch to a fruit and flower fertilizer that's higher in phosphorus and potassium. The numbers might be something like 8-10-10 or 5-10-10. I also add a slow-release fertilizer to the soil surface in February and again in June. Just sprinkle about 2 tablespoons around the base of the plant and scratch it lightly into the soil. This provides a steady nutrient supply between liquid feedings. Some folks swear by adding a bit of Epsom salt monthly for magnesium, and I found it does help keep the leaves a nice deep green. Sunlight is absolutely critical. Pineapples need at least 6 hours of direct sun, but 8 hours or more is ideal. In my garden, I've noticed that plants getting full sun all day produce fruit about 3 to 4 months earlier than those in partial shade. If you're growing indoors for winter, place it in your sunniest south-facing window and consider supplementing with a grow light. Temperature-wise, pineapples are tougher than you'd think. They can handle temperatures down to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit for short periods, but they really thrive between 65 and 95 degrees. If you're in zones 8 or colder, you'll need to bring them inside when night temperatures consistently drop below 50 degrees. I've had plants survive a light frost, but they definitely suffered and took months to recover. Around month 10 to 12, you'll notice the leaves getting longer and wider. My plants usually triple in size during this period. The leaves might also start changing color slightly, developing a reddish or bronze tinge, especially on the edges. This is completely normal and actually a sign of a healthy, maturing plant. Now let's talk about the exciting part, managing the flowering and fruiting stage. Somewhere between month 18 and 24, though it can take up to 30 months depending on conditions, you'll see something magical happen. A thick stalk will start emerging from the center of your plant. This is the flower stalk, and it's the moment you've been waiting for. I still remember the morning I saw my first flower stalk. I actually called my neighbor over to look at it because I was so excited. The flower stalk grows surprisingly fast, about an inch every few days. Within 2 weeks, you'll see what looks like a tiny pineapple forming at the top. This is actually a cluster of up to 200 individual flowers that will fuse together to become your pineapple. If you look closely, you can see each individual segment that will become one of those diamond-shaped sections on the mature fruit. Over the next few weeks, something beautiful happens. Each of those tiny flowers opens, showing purple or red petals. They open in sequence from bottom to top over about 2 weeks. It's one of the prettiest displays in the garden. And the flowers last only a day each, so check your plant daily during this time. I like to take photos every morning to document the progression. Once all the flowers have bloomed and faded, the real fruit development begins. The tiny pineapple will start swelling, and over the next 4 to 5 months it slowly grows and matures. During this time, it's crucial to maintain consistent care. Any stress to the plant now can affect fruit size and sweetness. Keep up with your fertilizing schedule, but once the fruit starts developing, switch to a fertilizer higher in potassium, which promotes fruit development and sweetness. Something like a 4 to 6-8 or tomato fertilizer works great. I also add a tablespoon of sulfate of potash around the base monthly during fruit development. One issue you might face is the fruit leaning or even falling over as it grows. The weight can cause the stalk to bend, especially in smaller plants. I learned to support heavy fruits with a bamboo stake. Just gently tie the stalk to the stake with soft plant ties or strips of pantyhose. Don't tie it too tight. You want to support, not strangle. By the way, if you're finding this information helpful, make sure to subscribe for more gardening tips like these. All right, let's talk about some common problems you might encounter. Growing pineapples is generally trouble-free, but there are a few issues that can pop up. The most common problem I see is yellowing leaves, which usually indicates a nutrient deficiency. If the older outer leaves are yellowing, that's normal as the plant ages. But if young leaves are turning yellow, you likely need to increase your fertilizing. A dose of iron supplement usually greens them up within a couple of weeks. Root rot is another issue, especially for eager waterers. If your plant's leaves start turning brown from the tips and the center leaves pull out easily, you've probably got rot. The only solution is to cut back on watering immediately and possibly repot in fresh, dry soil if it's severe. I've saved a few plants this way, though they took months to fully recover. Mealybugs are the main pest I've encountered. These look like little white cotton balls in the leaf crevices. They're easy to treat with a cotton swab dipped in rubbing alcohol. Just dab each bug you see, and they'll die instantly. For heavy infestations, spray with insecticidal soap weekly until they're gone. Scale insects sometimes appear as brown bumps on leaves. Treat these the same way as mealybugs. The good news is that pineapples have naturally tough leaves that resist most pests and diseases. If your plant isn't flowering after 24 months, you might need to give it a push. There's an old trick using ethylene gas to trigger flowering. Place a ripe apple in the center of the plant and cover the whole thing with a plastic bag for 3 to 4 days. The ethylene from the apple often triggers the plant to flower. I've used this technique successfully several times, though I prefer letting nature take its course when possible. Sometimes leaves develop brown tips, which is usually from fluoride in tap water or low humidity. If you can, use rainwater or let tap water sit out overnight before using. Misting the plant occasionally helps with humidity, especially if you're growing indoors. Now for the moment you've been waiting for, harvesting your pineapple and maximizing your yield. After all that waiting and care, determining the perfect harvest time is crucial. The fruit will start changing color from green to golden yellow from the bottom up. When it's about 50% yellow, start checking it daily. The perfect harvest point is when it's about 75% golden and you can smell that distinctive pineapple aroma from a foot away. I made the mistake with my first fruit of waiting too long, thinking more yellow meant more ripe. But pineapples can actually over-ripen on the plant, becoming too soft and losing flavor. The smell test is your best indicator. When it smells sweet and fruity, it's ready regardless of color. To harvest, use sharp pruning shears to cut the stalk about 2 inches below the fruit. Wear gloves and long sleeves because those leaves are sharp. The stalk is surprisingly thick and tough, so don't be afraid to really squeeze those shears. Here's my bonus tip for getting multiple harvests from one plant. After you harvest your first pineapple, don't pull up the plant. Within weeks, you'll see new shoots called slips or suckers growing from the base or along the stalk. These are baby pineapple plants that will produce fruit faster than starting from a crown, usually in just 12 to 18 months instead of 24 to 30. Leave these attached to the mother plant until they're about 6 inches tall, then gently twist them off and plant them just like you did the original crown. One plant can produce 2 to 4 suckers, multiplying your harvest. I've got plants that are now producing their 3rd generation of fruit. It's like having a pineapple factory in your backyard. That's everything you need to know about growing pineapples in containers. If this helped you out, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Drop a comment below if you're planning to start your own pineapple adventure or if you have any questions. Thanks for watching and happy growing.